So initially I was going to have this be an Alex Caruso appreciation video because while I know he's a fan favorite, he definitely gets the recognition that he deserves, I don't think it can be understated just how impactful he's been for the Bulls so far this season, especially when you break it down by the numbers. But after the Bulls' most recent game against the Suns, in which Alex Caruso straight up put on a masterclass of a defensive performance, and not even just on the defensive end, he also put up 19 points on efficient shooting, but ever since that performance, the overall discourse now surrounding Alex Caruso is whether the Bulls should capitalize on his stock being at an all-time high and trading him, since at the end of the day, we all know this team isn't going to be competing for a title. It goes back to the narrative of delaying the inevitable, in which we all know the Bulls are likely going to need to pivot and rebuild either at some point this season or in the offseason. And you would have to think a player of Alex Caruso's caliber, who is a high-effort hustle player who can guard multiple positions and can impact the game in so many ways, is a player that a lot of contending teams are going to be vying for and willing to pay handsomely in the form of a trade. But does it actually make sense for the Bulls to do that now, or wait a bit further to see how this season unfolds? And it's what we'll be talking about further in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, speaking purely from my own personal wants and desires as it relates to Alex Caruso, while I get that AC going to contender is likely going to make the most sense for not only the Bulls and their inevitable direction for which they will have to pivot to, but also for Alex Caruso himself. And I fully acknowledge that they could get a very nice package for Caruso, which we'll talk about what that package could potentially look like. But the selfish side of me absolutely loves watching this guy play night in and night out. And I hate the thought of seeing him on any other team and wearing another jersey other than a Bulls uniform. I mean, you guys know me. My favorite players, whether it be throughout history or currently, are those that give it 110% when they're on the court, playing every game like it's their last. Even if they're not the best player, they might not be the most athletic, they might be limited in a lot of aspects to their game, but if you're tough, hard-nosed, physical, high-effort, high-energy player, you've won me over. It's why Joakim Noah is one of my favorite players of all time, and it's why I absolutely love Alex Caruso. And so the thought of the Bulls trading him to a contending team, potentially a division rival team like the Milwaukee Bucks, makes me sick to my stomach. Here's the thing though, I've been very encouraged with the way the Bulls have played the last couple of games. They've played better on both ends of the floor, they've played with more effort, with more fight in them, and I've been impressed with their overall improvement on the offensive end. And so part of me almost wants to see how the next few weeks play out and see if the Bulls can keep up this level of play and see if somehow they can turn things around and be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. Because as we've said before, seeds 3 through 12 or 4 through 12 in the East are wide open in terms of jockeying for positioning in the standings. The level of parity in the Eastern Conference and really throughout the NBA has enabled teams to suddenly go from being a number 4 seed to falling to 10th because teams will be that close in the standings come February or March. So yes, the Bulls are not a contending team. They're not going to be contending for a title. They're not going to make a deep playoff run, but they could make things interesting if everything goes right and they keep playing the way they have been over the last couple of games. And so selfishly, as a diehard Bulls fan who just wants to see good competitive basketball, who wants to see his team in the playoffs, who wants to see some semblance of relevancy and doesn't want to see his team go through another rebuild, yeah, part of me doesn't want this whole thing to just be blown up. Or if they do quote unquote blow it up and they move off of either DeMar or Zach or even Vucevic, part of me still wants them to hang on to Caruso. I know it doesn't make sense. I know if you're going to blow it up, keeping Caruso is going to be one of your most valuable trade assets, and that's nonsensical to do. But I just don't think you can ever replace a player like Caruso, who, by the way, is in his prime, is on one of the best contracts in the NBA. They don't make players like AC anymore. In an era of basketball that is so focused on offense, with entitled players who don't give effort on the defensive end, who aren't everywhere on the court, knowing their spot, knowing their role, who put their ego aside and just compete night in and night out. It's very rare to find players like that anymore. And so for the Bulls, you'd have to think, even if we do blow it up, is it really worth it to move on from a player who is a dying breed in Alex Caruso? Now, every player in the league has a price though, even for those who are considered untouchable. Like if a team offers a package that is just too good to be true, then yeah, you simply cannot ignore that. And last season, around the trade deadline, when there was talk and interest for teams around the league and Alex Caruso, it was reported the Bulls' asking price at that time was 2 first-round picks. And I know a lot of people laughed at that, but honestly, the Bulls should have a high asking price for AC because they shouldn't feel a need to move on from Caruso as quickly as possible. They should be approaching it as, we don't want to trade this guy. If you really want him, you have to overpay for him. And that starts with 2 first-round picks. And I said at that time, if the Bulls could get 2 first-round picks for Alex Caruso, you almost kind of have to do it. I mean, I would love it for the Bulls to hold out for even more, especially when AC last season wasn't having the best year on offense. Whatever his trade value was at the deadline last year is even higher now based on how he's showing up so far this season. I mean, just look at his numbers. We'll put the defense aside because we know he's been elite on that end of the floor. But on offense, so far this year, Alex Caruso is showcasing he has the ability to be one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA. Dude is shooting 44% from deep on almost 3 attempts per game. That's higher volume than last season and on a better clip. Now, whether he can sustain that is up for debate, but it's honestly not even just his outside shooting. The way he's been able to get to the paint, finish at the rim, or putting up floaters in the key has been exceptional, something we weren't seeing last season. He's shooting near 60% from the field as a guard, a true shooting percentage of 71%. That is insanely efficient. Now, it's a small sample size, it's only through 9 games, and yes, these numbers won't stay high as the season goes on, but there is something to be said about Caruso's improved offensive game that makes his trade value that much higher. You factor in his on-court, off-court numbers and his box plus minus, yeah, he leads the team in terms of giving the Bulls their best net rating when he's on the court, more than Zach Lavine, more than DeMar DeRozan, more than Nikola Vucevic. The Bulls are significantly better with Caruso when he's on the court versus when he's off. Caruso is currently 8th in the league in defensive rating, which is impressive for a team that is currently at a defensive rating of 20th in the NBA. He's 3rd in the league in steal percentage and 6th in box plus minus, defensive box plus minus, I should say. I mean, the way that Alex Caruso has been playing, if he can keep this up and stays healthy, he has a legitimate case for being Defensive Player of the Year for a guy coming off the bench. I actually wonder if that's ever happened, a player winning Defensive Player of the Year coming off the bench. I probably should have looked that up before recording. But anyway, you get it. Caruso is one of a kind, and I don't think the Bulls should be shopping the man. They should, of course, be taking calls and maintaining a very high asking price for him, not settling, not going on a fire sale. Realistically, they should be looking to get the biggest bang for their buck on Caruso over other guys like Lavine and DeMar. Not saying that Caruso would net a bigger return than someone like Zach Lavine, but more so saying the Bulls should hold out for the best possible deal in a bidding war for Caruso among contending teams. I mean, really, you look at teams like the Celtics, the Bucks, the Warriors, hell, even the Nuggets or the Sixers, the Clippers or the Lakers. I mean, all of these teams that are wanting to compete for a title, whether or not they're legitimate title contenders is another thing, but all these teams are trying to win now. And they all could use a player like Alex Caruso coming off the bench to bolster their defense. Now, some of these teams don't have much in terms of draft capital, and for those teams, they're out because the only way it would make sense for the Bulls to trade Caruso is if it includes significant draft assets. But a team like the Warriors, who have shown interest in Caruso before, a team that needs perimeter defense, they could conceivably offer their 2 first-round picks, which I believe will be their final first-round picks that they have available to trade, and even include a young player like Kuminga or Moses Moody. That's a pretty solid return for the Bulls. I don't love it because, as I said before, at the end of the day, I don't want to see Caruso in any other jersey other than the Bulls, but if there is a package that is too good to pass up, you have to take advantage when you know this team isn't going to be going anywhere. But enough about what I think. I actually want to hear what you guys think of the Bulls trading Caruso, whether or not they should, and how much you would want in return for Caruso. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.